poppin', y'all? It is your boy Gardi3, and welcome to Coffee and Sports, the morning show. Of course, joining us just like every morning. This is really his show, and I'm just the guest on this one. He is Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
Hey, good morning, Brad. Good morning, chat. Welcome everybody on a wonderful Friday morning.
Hey, what? Hey, Key, Ando, how you guys doing? Say, well, I figure we get right into it, Mo, with some NFL talk. We have some more preseason action this weekend, and I think it should be a lot of fun. We're gonna have the first start from Justin Herbert this weekend. It'll be our second look at Miami D offense, which it got actually ripped by Tua, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek had stuff to say about it earlier. So I'm just curious, Mo, with week 2 of preseason coming up, what are some things you're looking out for? Could be from your own team or just around the league.
I think when you're looking at the Dolphins and their offense, I'm sure that the expectations going into this game is they'd like to put together at least 2, maybe even 3 really good drives that they come away with points with. You'd like to see the running game be effective. Tua push the ball down the field a little bit, get everybody involved, and see how well the offensive line holds up in terms of protecting Tua. When you're looking at what LA is talking about, I mean, in the Chargers, I really think that Herbert might only play with like one series if it's a good, clean series and they come away with points. Everybody knows that Jim Harbaugh is a run-first coach, so the run sets up the pass in his system. I think so. It's really going to be about how well the run enables Herbert to push the ball downfield and to attack teams vertically.
And you know what? That's fair enough. I know I'll be looking at the Dolphins this weekend. I know they tried to, make a point that they wanted to be more physical. They try to get some bigger bodies on, offense. And then, ironically, first preseason game, they get on the goal line. They try to run it 4 times to establish some physicality. Problem is, they get stuffed 4 times in a row and they don't come away with any points. So, I know I'll be curious to see if that trend continues. Maybe they look to be aggressive and extremely physical again. And yeah, I'll be curious to see how Herbert looks. I'm sure he'll absolutely cook, but it's always fun to see your superstars first reps in preseason as well.
Yeah, look, and I selfishly now look as a Niners fan, I would like to see what the offense looks like because remember, this offense is without Brandon Ayuk. This offense is in the first time in years. There is no gadget guy that can do a little bit of everything in Deebo Samuels. So to me, the number one option to me becomes George Kittle, who I have no problem with, by the way, because Kittle still has the ability to get downfield vertically in a way that a lot of tight ends can't. The key is going to be how well the offensive line works as a unit because this is a different offensive line from last year. They lost some people. If the offensive line is solid, then there will be running lanes for C-Mac. Now, do I need to see Christian McCaffrey play in the preseason? Honestly, I'd be fine if he didn't play at all. I know what I'm going to get from a healthy Christian McCaffrey, so I really need to look at my rookies and see which 1 or 2 or 5 of my rookies can step up and be impact players because who's your number 1 receiver right now? Is it going to be Juan Jennings, who's having contract issues? We really need somebody to step into that role until Brandon Ayuk can get healthy.
Hey, and you know what? That's fair enough. I know for my team, I'm just looking for really just cohesiveness, like communication, just better play from the defense. They just look completely lost out there against the Jets. Made Justin Fields look like prime Patrick Mahomes at times. Offense, just catch. Just catch the football. I don't really care if we say I don't really at this point care if we, win or we put up 30. Like I just want to see a good, clean run where in game reps we're just able to catch. That was a huge problem. It it was funny because we in the first game Jordan Love went 1 of 5, and on the surface it's like, oh, he only completed 1 out of 5 passes. That looks terrible. And then when you watch it, you realize it was 1 of 5 with 3 drops. And that's a problem that absolutely plagued us all of last year. So I'm hoping that we're just getting the rushed off and the drops won't be an issue for us again this year. But if game one's any indicator, it very well might be.
And look, that's what preseason is for. Yes, it's to shake off the rust. It's to be sharper. But look, for me, I don't think preseason is about who wins or loses. I don't care if the Niners go 0-4 in the preseason. I don't care. What I care about is, A, they go into the regular season as healthy as possible, and B, I'm looking for the players who are fighting for positions who will step up. Like I said, be it a 10 or 12-year veteran or a second or third year rookie, not a third year rookie, but a third year player ready to take that next step in their development. So to me, the preseason is more about finding out who can play, who can contribute, and who's going to make your roster.
I think the 49ers do take a year to reset. Hey, you know what? That's fair. But it's the thing with the 49ers that's interesting is they do have I think they're have one of the easiest schedules in terms of strength of schedule in the league this year. So this could be like a reset year, but they could also accidentally just fall into a playoff spot if things go right. Like they do not have a hard schedule, so I could see them trying to rebuild, but also just accidentally falling into a playoff spot this year.
Yeah, I agree with that 1,000%. So, look, I think you're right. More times than not, I would say that this would be a year where they step back, and if I had to guess, this would be a year where they might win 7 or 8 games. But because of their strength of schedule or lack thereof, I think as long as they beat the teams that they should beat, and I think there are more than a few on the schedule, this team is going to get into the playoffs, even though they're not really an elite team. So when the pundits get hype and go, look how great the Niners are, and then they go up against a juggernaut and get smashed, I'm just being preemptive and saying to everybody, this team is not the title contending team that it had been over the previous seasons. There are holes on both sides of the football that they haven't filled yet. And until they do, I think this team might just be good enough to sneak in, but that's all they'll do is sneak in.
To get back to form to recover and oh no, that's fair. I definitely do think they need a year. I think the biggest thing that they should probably do this year in all reality is just experiment on offense. And what I mean by that is they still seem to base so much of their offense on Christian McCaffrey. And if I'm the 49ers, I think it's time to this year, for example, you can still obviously feature him, but I think it's time to really start just working away from that. What else can I do besides, relying on Christian McCaffrey to generate some quality offense? Because obviously, after I don't know how much longer you can realistically rely on CMC to really generate great offense in all reality going forward.
I think that's fair. I think you also have to put that on Kyle Shanahan and the coaching staff because, to me, yeah, I still think a healthy C-Mac is a 1,500-yard back, but how long can he be a 1,500-yard back with his injury history? You have to find in your running back room another guy who could potentially be 1,000-yard runner, even if it's not a bell cow back, just somebody who can make plays, maybe be special in space, make people miss, be effective or impactful out the backfield. There's a lot of ways you can be an impactful running back other than just taking a handoff. If you're strong in the screen game or catching swing passes and making people miss, you have great value. So I agree with you. They need to look into their running back room and find other guys who could be effective for them outside of CMAC.
No, absolutely. So I know I'll definitely be looking forward to that. It'll be a lot of fun to see, at the end of the day, just another great weekend of football. So
not just a great weekend of football, a great weekend of football and a great weekend because Madden's back.
Oh, fair enough too. I know I'm excited to ball out with my Packers in next year's Madden. It's going to be great. Got Madden back. We got next month we'll have the new 2K out.
Right.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. I know I'm definitely looking forward to next year's this 2K26 as well. I love playing some My Player and some Play Now Wild 9 franchises.
I'm still rocking college football. Love college football. I love the recruiting process.
Hey, you know what? That's fair enough. I just honestly, that's kind of one of my relaxation games. Like I'll just sit down, throw on some Road to Glory, and just pick defenses apart with my quarterback, and then half the time go to sleep right after. Let's say I know. I know. I'll be looking forward to trying out some new teams in 2K26 as well. I love experimenting. I'm actually curious on how fun the Hornets will be. Last year they're one of the bizarre teams that I was really good with. So adding Con Knuppel is actually pretty exciting. Give me some consistent shooting at the 2. And you know what? I'll take it. Granted, they lost Mark Williams, and he was big for me last year, so I'll have to work my way around that.
It's funny. I'm a diehard Laker fan, but I haven't really been the Lakers that much in 2K, maybe over the last 5 or 6 years. I've just been experimenting with different teams. I think the team that I'm going to experiment with this season, I think it's going to be the Raptors. It's going to be the Raptors. I'm going to find a way to make the combination of Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, along with RJ Barrett, and quickly, I'm going to make that quartet work.
I thought about using the Raptors because I enjoy the idea of the Toronto Raptors. I just got to figure out if I can shoot with them or not. They're fun because you can easily get out into transition with them because of how long they are.
Right.
So, that's a lot of deflected passes, play the passing lanes. So I know I'm looking forward to that, and they obviously added Colin Murray Boyles in the draft. That was somebody I was excited to see where he went. So in general, too, just a lot of great teams to test out, and of course, I'm excited for actual basketball to get back as well for the NBA. Also, just to see some of these younger guys play and see how they mesh. I think the Raptors will be an interesting team, just because they're once again they're long, but I don't know where the consistent shooting is going to come from for them. They're going to have Barrett and Quickly, but outside of that, I think it'll be a chore to knock down open threes at times.
No, I agree. If they're going to get consistent shooting, it'll be from somebody that we're not looking at, because that quartet that I just named, Quickly streaky from 3, Barrett streaky from 3, Ingram's never been a good 3-point shooter, and Scotty Barnes, that is not his forte. So yeah, I think there's more questions than answers, And while I'll enjoy playing with them in 2K, if I were a head coach going into the season and that was my core four, the way the game is played, I think you're starting off behind the 8 ball because you don't have shooting among your 4 best players.
No, and that's fair. I say I know Brandon Ingram can be talented, but he really likes to operate more out of the mid range than anything. So
Right. And he can't go left.
It feels like it'll be a lot of like their offense is going to be a ton of just Brandon Ingram middies and see how far that takes you. And I'm not sure really how far that's going to take them.
Brandon Ingram middies and Scotty Barnes playing bully ball, crab dribbling people under the basket. Like, I'm a Scotty Barnes fan, so this isn't me saying he's not an impactful player. But I'm a fan of Scotty Barnes the same way I was a fan of Ron Artest. I knew Ron Artest was an impactful player, but I also knew that Ron Artest couldn't be the best player on a title contender. And I feel the same way about Scotty Barnes.
And you know what? That's fair enough. I don't think the Raptors really have the guy on. They have a lot of really good like second options or third options, but they don't really have the guy look and go, yeah, he can take them to a championship.
So yeah, I think they have a lot of twos. They don't have a one, but they have multiple twos.
It's funny, they invested into this core like they're going to win a title with them. Say they paid a lot of money to Jakob, Ingram, Barnes. Say I think, Quickly and Barrett are making a good amount of change, so it'll be interesting. I've always, respected Toronto a bit because they, on one hand, they always just, they never actually refuse to not be competitive. But also at the same time, watching them, at times you're just like, just tank for a little bit, guys. Like, I get it. You don't want to be, you don't want to lose it all the time. But that being said, how happy can you really be being the 8th seed every year and battling Trae Young in the play-in?
They're in basketball purgatory. The funny thing is, Brett, the guys that we just named, a lot of teams would like those guys on their teams, but in different roles, right? Like if you were Golden State and you said, well, we like Scotty Barnes, right? But Scotty Barnes on Golden State would be in a different role. On Golden State, he'd be your third option offensively, and Scotty Barnes and Draymond Green on the perimeter defensively, that would be tremendous. Even with an older Jimmy Butler, that would help too. But in that role, you could be effective. Brandon Ingram as a third option, say, for a team like the Pacers, he has a lot more value that way. So Quickly as a 6-man on a title contender, more value that way. Like I don't think it's interesting. They're all very good players, but when you put them all together, it screams play-in at best. They're in basketball purgatory because they're just good enough to barely make or miss the playoffs, and they're not bad enough to get a top 5 pick.
See, the Raptors to me have a whole bunch of players that do the same thing. And I feel like that's it almost feels like that's a reason why, Masai, stepped down. Like, I feel like, that was a mutual parting, but it almost felt like, I don't know how else to say it, but it almost felt like they didn't really have a plan or a direction under him besides remain competitive at any cost. And the problem when you do that is you end up where the Raptors are now. Like, if you don't have a plan to, get better, you're just trying to win games at any cost. A lot of times that kind of logic just leads you into purgatory for like year after year after year. Like the Raptors, like the 2010, late 2010 Magic, who just kept sneaking into the playoffs and get smoked in 4.
I think we would agree. Usai Ujiri was one of the best GMs for years. But here's the thing about GMs: they're like head coaches. If you don't stay ahead of the times and where the league is, eventually the league passes you by your way of thinking. Yes, Usai stepped away, but he stepped away after he signed all those horrible deals. He brought together all those players and overpaid for every last one of them. Like, couldn't you step away like a couple of years in advance and this could have been avoided? Like, it goes. You have to give credit to guys like Brad Stevens. You have to give credit to guys like Sam Presti, who are always forward thinking. Like the Thunder are the defending champs, and Sam Presti still makes moves like they're building for, like they have to rebuild for the future. Like he's always thinking about the next iteration of his franchise. And I respect that. I think that's why those are still two of the best front office guys in all of basketball. Whereas look at a guy like Danny Ainge, who gets a lot of credit usually for swindling people in deals. But the reality is, if you think about it, since Danny Ainge has been in Utah, what has Utah really done? I know Danny's accumulated a lot of picks, but the Jazz have not been very good. So I think Danny Ainge has been living off his reputation for a minute. And this last draft where he got Ace Bailey and what's the young man? Walter. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Oh, Clayton.
Clayton. What he needs is for both of them to pan out. This needs to be a big year because I really think that Danny Ainge is kind of floundered in Utah because the Jazz have not been relevant in years.
Oh, that's so funny to me that they drafted two guys who clearly like try to push where they wanted to go, and Ainge just kind of called their bluff, like, nope, welcome to Utah. It's funny, everybody talks about Ace Bailey, but like Walter Clayton was clearly the funniest one to me because you could tell he was trying to push his way to Miami, but it didn't work out like that. They obviously took him right before Miami could. Because if people don't know, they asked Walter Clayton before the draft, if you could have lunch with three guys in the entirety of history, who do you want to have lunch with? And he goes, well, Eric Spoelstra. I'm like, oh, okay. I see your game here. Like, everybody in history you want to have lunch with Eric Spoelstra. Like, I think it's pretty clear what we're trying to do, but I'm interested to see how Utah looks this year. Laurie, he had an off year last year, and we'll see if he can have a return to form with a bounce back year, get closer to that all-star level, and then just see how the young guys play. And it'll be a real interesting year, that's for sure.
What is marketed? What is Laurie marketed? Like, is it a bounce back year, or the year that he made the all-star team was more like a blip? Because he made the all-star team, but were they good? Did he make his teammates better? Like, he was good, but did he make his teammates better? I would say no. I don't think he's a perennial all-star. I think that was a blip. I think he's a really good player, but I think he's the kind of player that I think he's very much in the mode of Porzingis, where he was drafted, we underrate him, and then he has a couple of big seasons, and we overrate him. Porzingis was never a franchise player. That was just a myth that pundits put out there. The same way that people overhype marketing, he's not a franchise player. He can't. If he's your best player, you're gonna be in the lottery a lot. Marketing is a complimentary star. If he's your third option, you're probably one of the best teams in your conference. If he's your best player, though, you're gonna be living in the lottery. I don't think he's that dude. I think he's really good, but I don't think he has that it factor.
No, and that's fair enough. I agree with that. I think he's a good player, but he shouldn't be the best player on your team by like any definition of the word. So I'd say Porzingis. I think that's a fair comparison too. It's funny. I was just having a conversation about Porzingis and his Knicks days. And I think you'll get a kick out of this. Some people were trying to discredit how the triangle offense would work in modern time, and they're like, and I think that's fair. I think the triangle offense, and the late now, you can take some parts of it, but I think it would be outdated. But their way of trying to discredit it, they're like, Well, they tried the triangle with the Knicks in 2014, and that didn't work. They even brought in Phil Jackson. And I'm like, just stop it. We're not going to discredit the triangle because he couldn't make it work with Carmelo Anthony and Kristaps Porzingis trying to run a motion offense. Like, I just thought that was funny. Like, the personnel alone, just off the names, didn't fit at all.
Right. So to say it wouldn't work, I disagree. I would say it didn't work because you didn't have the right personnel. Start there. You didn't have the right, not just Porzingis and Melo, but the surrounding cast around them. They weren't very good. I don't care what kind of system you put in. If you don't have the right pieces within that system, the system fails. And remember, at that point in his career, Melo's legs were gone. This wasn't a guy that was a threat to beat anybody off the dribble. That's not what he was. So he's completely different. I think if the triangle is going to work, yes, you have to have shooting and the ball movement has to go, but you also have to have a perimeter player who's dominant enough a scorer that they can create for themselves while drawing attention for others. I don't think that version of Melo would have ever qualified for that. And I remember Knicks fans overrating Porzingis' rookie year so much when they were saying like, well, Porzingis he can take it off he can take people off the dribble. No, he couldn't. He didn't have a handle. He never had a handle. They were talking about how great a defensive player he was. He wasn't a great defensive player. What he was a really good weak side defender. That's how he got his blocked shots. When he was a primary defender, he got eaten alive. And factually, that didn't change on the Celtics either. He's not a great one-on-one defender. He never was. So I reject the notion that the triangle wouldn't work. I would say if you have the right personnel, it still could be effective in this era, but you would have to have the right personnel.
I'll say, yeah, no, fair enough. Like, yeah, and the funny part is, like, I think it'd be an interesting experiment because I do think you'd almost have to tweak it a little bit, but I still think that it was just a funny thing because it's just like a whole like system based on player and ball movement, and you're trying to do that with 2014 Carmelo Anthony. Like, that was just kind of doomed from the start. If you thought that was going to work, that's just on you for having false expectations. Like, when I'm in New York and I'm excited that Carmelo Anthony hit like 4 assists in the 2013 season and thinking it could be, the start of his playmaking era, like, I think that's just a sign that maybe like an offense like a pass heavy one like the triangle probably isn't going to work out, with him at the helm.
And to be fair, for all the things that Phil Jackson got right and did right, what made him a great coach was his ability to deal with high-level personalities, deal with different egos. But when he went to the Knicks as the president of the Knicks, the biggest failure was him. The team that he put together was a bad team. He brought in players that were either past their prime or he valued them where no one else valued them. Like Phil Jackson, he was the primary reason why the Knicks were so bad under his stint. He just did a horrible job, top to bottom. I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, did he not hire Derek Fisher as head coach?
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing, Phil? Like, come on, man. That was doomed from the start. He just did a lot of things wrong.
Like, and the worst part is, like, I think they, and it's funny because they downgraded too. I think they went with like Fisher, and then they got rid of him, and then they brought in Kurt Rambis, who might be the worst coach I've ever seen on this NBA sidelines. Like,
and they made it worse, right?
I think I could give Kurt Rambis the dream team for a full season, and he'd find a way to lead them to like 30 wins. Like, he was not good. Say somehow, like, I didn't have any expectations for the 14-15 Knicks, and they still found a way to let me down. They were just brutal.
Wasn't Rambis at one point for a short stint also the coach of the Timberwolves, and he was awful there too?
Like, yeah,
like coach, like they took a guy who was a role player on a sensational dynasty, and they thought, Rambis, he's done a lot of winning, so he would know the difference. Like, horrible coach. He got multiple opportunities.
Yeah, his career when his records on the Timberwolves, he had a 15-win season, then he had a 17-win season, then he got fired, and then the Knicks were like, you know what? Let's hire him. And then he started out the year really terribly, and they're like, you know what? This was a mistake. It just goes to show you that not all players make great coaches, even like the high level, really high IQ players. Because like Kurt Rambis knew the game; he was a high IQ player out there when he did play, but that just didn't translate to coaching for him, unfortunately.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Look, Magic Johnson is easily one of the greatest players to ever play the game. Magic was a horrible coach, bad, just wasn't a good coach. It's just proof that coaching is underrated. I remember Magic was coaching at the time. That was the young Nick Van Exel and Eddie Jones. And he was it. I felt like every game he and Van Exel were yelling at each other. Like Magic was not cut out to be a coach. That's why I think he was done like 7 or 8 games in. He had enough and he walked away.
Say the real question, Mo, how many games would a team with Magic Johnson the coach and Magic Johnson the GM win?
Not a lot. Magic Johnson, the coach and the GM, I think that's a lottery team. And this is coming from a guy who's Magic Johnson is my favorite player, but Magic is, like I said, he is one of the 10 greatest players that ever play in the history of the league, but it didn't translate to player development, his ability to analyze talent or be a coach, or to put together a roster. It just wasn't a strength. What Magic was really good at was selling the Lakers brand. He was great at that. But at the other things, the basketball things, he wasn't good at it. And it's weird because his life outside the NBA, he's been terrific at business. And one of the reasons he's excelled at business is he's hired business people who know business inside and out and delegated things to them, and he's been successful that way. And had he applied that same way of thinking with the Lakers, I think he would have been successful there too. But he didn't. Like, do you remember when Magic was like, "Oh, we got Lonzo Ball"? He said, "I guarantee you, Lonzo's jersey is going to be right up there at some point, right next to mine, and Worthy's and Kareem." And even when he was doing that big sell job, I was like, "Should have got Tatum. Should have got Tatum." Well, it wasn't personal, but you should have got what I did. Whatever he saw, I never saw it. Never saw it. And this is not a knock, because to Lonzo's credit, he worked his way into being a very good basketball player. Not the type of player that was going to be anything that Magic Johnson projected, but he worked himself into being a terrific 3-and-D guy. But Magic had him being a transcendent player. And that was one of those drafts where normally I'm pretty cool, calm and cool, but when we didn't take Tatum, I was so angry. So angry.
Yeah, and and it's funny because I feel like that was the biggest reason why the Celtics were so comfortable trading back to 3 with the 76ers, because they knew, like, all right, Lonzo's going to, and clearly the 76ers want Markelle Fultz. Like, at that point, it's just like, well, our guy's Tatum, so we can trade back assets and still get him at 3. So it would have been quite the curveball at that point if the Lakers went anybody else but Lonzo after the way, he got hyped up in the pre-draft process.
And as bad as the ball pick was, look, again, he became a good player. But when you draft him where you draft him, you're not drafting a guy to be a good player. You're drafting him to be a franchise changer. Alonzo was never that. But the only team that did worse than the Lakers, goddamn Sixers. Markelle Fultz? What?
Yeah,
I remember. I had to look at the YouTube. I had to go find this guy. When I found him, and it showed like he averaged like 29 points a game, something like that. But he averaged 29 points a game for a team that was getting the brakes beat off of them like nightly. And I'm like, is he that good, or he's just the leading scorer on a really bad team? I didn't see what they saw. I didn't. I don't understand that. Like, how do you dance? Like both franchises, Sixers and the Lakers, whiffed on Tatum. I don't get that.
Yeah, it's weird with him because he like suffered a shoulder injury with Fultz, and then he just like forgot how to shoot, and it almost became mental with him after a while because he developed into like a fine piece over in Orlando, but I don't know, like he just like forgot how to shoot, and I don't know if it was like a mental block, but yeah, after that shoulder injury, he just wasn't the same player.
I like the way you said that. Right, so that's something he and Lonzo have similar. They were disappointments, but they developed into good basketball players, which is a positive. I root for guys like that. The only disappointment is, again, if your franchise drafts that high, you could draft a good guy in the mid first round or late first round. You don't draft the 3-and-D guy in the top 5.
You know what? That's fair enough.
Unless you're Michael Jordan and you draft Kid Gilchrist, and he wasn't a 3-and-D guy, he was just a D guy. There wasn't a he wasn't. Not only was he not a 3-and-D guy, he wasn't a 2-and-D guy. He was nothing. He was a bricklayer. But I digress.
You say the 3-and-D for him stood for 3 feet from the basket, and then.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Anywhere outside of like 3 feet, he was just not really doing any damage against you.
Oh my god! Just it so bad, so bad. I don't want to be anti-player because look, to be able to get to the pros, fulfill that dream, you're doing something that 90-something% of us never will do, and I respect you for that. Man, but just the overreach, like, man.
Hey, you know what? It's fair though, because there are some picks that like when you immediately see them on draft night, you're like, "Yep, that wasn't a good one," and it almost felt like everybody was just that way about Kid Gilchrist. Like, yeah, that wasn't great,
right? Don't we all have the same reaction over certain picks? Like, you know how you reacted the night the Cavaliers drafted Anthony Bennett. I was like, who the hell? Who in the hell is Anthony Bennett?
Yeah, I'd say that one blew my mind too. Anthony Bennett. We have that. It's always fun when teams reach because then you get great draft reactions. Like, I remember being absolutely stunned in the NFL draft when the Colts took Richardson at 4. I remember my one friend, he's a diehard New York Giants fan still, so I give him credit for being loyal to the cause even after like a decade of depression. And I was on the phone with him, and the 1 year of the draft, he's like, "Oh, hold on, we're gonna pick." I'm like, "All right." So I have him on speaker. I'm driving home and I just hear, "Who the F is Daniel Jones?" I'm like, oh, they took Daniel Jones. Okay. And then that didn't work out for them. They got one playoff appearance out of it, and that was it.
The draft night will drive you crazy, but the beauty of sports, out of nowhere, something can like change your spirits. John Lynch made no secret that he wanted Trey Lance, that he was willing, and he did trade away. I believe he traded like 3 or 4 number 1 picks to move up and get Trey Lance. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I had looked, I'd watched the film on Trey Lance. I was looking at the competition he was going up against, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to me. And he went ahead and did it. And obviously, Trey Lance, he did not pan out. I'm happy that he seems to have resurrected himself and he's turned himself into at least a viable backup quarterback. But remember, he wasn't drafted as a viable backup quarterback. They drafted him. They spent the draft capital like he was going to be Lamar Jackson. on that kind of level. And I was just so bummed because he turned out what I thought he was going to be. And lo and behold, though, a guy that no one thought about, an afterthought, last pick in the draft, turns out to be gold. That's the beauty of sports.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The last pick in the draft is the guy that saved John Lynch.
100% saved his job.
That's the same thing when the Bulls drafted Noah and SMU. I still don't know who he is. I feel bad for him because he actually played really well in summer league. I thought he's raw, but I thought he did well. But man, that poster dunk that he had on him, that's gonna follow him, and it's so unfortunate. Like some photographer just absolutely just killed his career on accident. Not really. I think he'd still be a great player, but like they just took that picture at the worst possible angle for the kid.
It's gonna stick with. He's gonna have to have a great career to erase that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Say it. So, I figure, we end the show talking some wrestling, Mo. And I found this interesting, by the way, because you know what? John Cena, they're talking to John Cena in an interview. They're asking him about, his potential final opponent. And he just goes, yeah, I don't pick my opponent. So, whoever they give me, I'm fine with it. I find it so interesting that Triple H tried to throw him under the bus for bringing back, who at the end of SummerSlam.
Right.
And John Cena has responded now by like 3 times in a week and a half, like reiterating, like, yeah, I don't pick my opponents. That's them. So it's almost like he's like he knew what they were trying to do, and he's just making sure to reiterate, like we make sure we all know. Yeah, I'm not the one calling the shots here. So
I love that John Cena pointed out, like, no, I didn't co-sign on that. Don't try to co-sign me on that. Like, no, that's not me.
Yeah, and even like it got backed up too. I remember earlier in the year, him and say Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton had an interview, and Randy said that hey, before his retirement tour started, he went up to John and said, "Hey, we should run it back," and John pretty much just told him, if that's what creative wants us to do, then yeah, we'll run it back. That's been at the end of the day, that's always been one of John Cena's biggest like strengths and weaknesses. Just at the end of the day, he does trust the creative, and I think that's great for them. But at the same time, that's also like how you end up with matches against like Austin Theory.
Yeah. Look, what I like about John Cena is that he knows that as great as his career is, it's winding down. And I feel like because he knows he has X amount of matches left, I think he feels empowered, even though he's always been a company guy. I think he feels empowered to say, no, don't say I approve this or I said this was okay. Like, I like that Cena is speaking out a little bit more because he knows I'm walking away from this anyway. So this is not going to be me moving forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Damien asked, "What are y'all thoughts on Naomi rumors of her being pregnant?" I heard the rumors, and if that's true, good for her. I know she was talking about wanting to start a family, and if that's the case, and she really is, good for her. I think that's great for her. At the end of the day, family will always come first before wrestling. So I would be happy for her, and I would just hope that whenever she comes back, then they just kind of pick up where they left off at the end of the day, because Naomi has been a terrific champion so far. So when she comes back, if that is true, just keep her in the main event scene.
Look, if it is, congratulations to them, and I'm with you 100% on this, partner. This new iteration of Naomi the heel, I'm loving it. She's been terrific at it, and she's proven that she still is a main event performer. So if she's going to step away for an extended period or whatever for the for her family, I'm here for it. And when she comes back, I hope they thrust her right back into the picture. Maybe she picks right back up, and instead of having a feud with Jade, she goes and has a feud with Bianca or somebody else. But yeah, I think she's definitely should be a fixture in terms of being in the main event in the women's division.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And you know what's funny, Mo? We got another example of why former wrestlers shouldn't always be bookers. What I mean by that is obviously, as the John Cena retirement tour is winding to a close, say we had, Bully Ray goes on his podcast and he goes, you know what? You know what they should do? John Cena's last, on the night of John Cena's absolute last match, as he's walking out, they should bring Vince out to greet him. And I'm just like, please no. Let's leave Vince in the past. Let's leave him on the sidelines. Like, I'm sorry, that just sounds like something WWE would do potentially, but at the same time, it just sounds like a horrible idea.
That is a horrible idea. And look, I think Bully Ray knows a ton about wrestling, the inner workings of it as much as anybody. But on this particular thing, he's wrong. You do not want to bring Vince back ever, in my opinion, ever. Let alone to bring him back to shake John. No, that's not necessary. I think that's a horrible idea. Good. It's good that it's not that decision is not in Bully Ray's hands. Thank God.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's already like obviously very controversial that they brought back Lesnar. I can't even imagine like the backlash if they decided to go all the way and just bring back Vince like that. That just doesn't sound good for anybody, and that just really doesn't benefit anybody. Like, you know, even if we do the thing that people like to do, Mo, we go, well, let's just put the off the out of the ring stuff to the side. I'm just like, okay, fine, let's do that real quick. Bringing back Vince, who does that benefit? He can't really put anybody over. Vince wanted to. Ironically, Vince is the one that wanted to fire John Cena, and it was Stephanie that saved his career by figuring out that he could, freestyle rap. So I almost think it would actually be more fitting, and it would go over a lot better if you want to bring like a McMahon out to, greet John and say thank you to him. Why not Stephanie? Because, like I said, Stephanie, he's credited her for saving his career when he was younger. So
I like that. I like that move a lot. Um, they have a good relationship. They have natural chemistry because many times, she's kind of been a foil for John Cena and vice versa. So yeah, if you're going to have any member of the McMahon family, pull him out and give him a handshake or a hug, give him his flowers one last time, the only one that makes sense is Stephanie.
yeah, and of course there's debate on when this is all going to go down. By the way, at first it was rumored that December 13th they were going to host Saturday night's main event in Massachusetts. However, WWE has fallen in love with counter programming AEW. So now there's a rumor that they could very well host John Cena's retirement match on December 27th, which is the same day as AEW World's End pay per view. And look, if I'm
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, if I'm WWE, just do it on the 13th. Give John his own day. The thing with the 27th too is there's an NFL game on that Saturday. So I would absolutely just kind of build it around John. Let's give him his own day to be celebrated. Let him be the full talking point and don't, use him to counter program AEW. That just sounds like a terrible thing to do because then you're taking some headlines away from John Cena.
And if I'm being honest, more importantly, unless you're going to put together an A+ card, you don't want to go head to head with AEW. Look, I know the WWE is the bully on the block, but wrestling fans in the know AEW has been putting out some fire pay-per-view matches, top to bottom. And if WWE keeps going ahead, because people are look that last round, AEW gave it to them, right? Let's keep it real. They gave it to WWE. I want to highlight John Cena's career, and I don't want anything that's going to take away from it. So I'm not going to go against AEW. I'm definitely not going to go against the NFL. I'm going to pick the right date, the right time, where every attention can be on John Cena.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. At the end of the day, let's make John Cena's retirement day about John Cena. You want to. They're already trying to do the whole counter programming thing. Apparently, they're going to add a PLE next month for the 20th, which is, of course, is the AEW All Out pay-per-view. And apparently that's going to be headlined by John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. So I don't see that going very well either. Because once again, if you're going to counter program, like you just said, an AEW pay-per-view, you got to bring your A+ game. And I don't really see them being able to counteract what AEW's cooking up for All Out. That's going to be a great card.
And I feel like the aura that Lesnar had around him is gone. I mean, he's going to come out. I'm assuming he's going to F5 Cena, 4 or 5 times, maybe. When he doesn't do that, he's going to suplex Cena 8, 11 times. And in between that, I guess he throws him out of the ring a couple of times. That's pretty much the match until the very end, where I assume Cena finds a way to win, which he should. I don't want to see Brock Lesnar again. Aside from his legal issues, I don't see the point of when you think of all the top of the card talent that you have. What do you need him for? You don't need him. You don't lack for star power on the main card, and there's some terrific talent on the next roster. So I just don't understand the need to put Brock Lesnar in the forefront. I'm not with that.
And you say we did hear that obviously Vince had an interview with TMZ. I did hear quite a bit of it, and yeah, he if there's one guy who's going to defend Hogan, it's going to be Vince. He did try to pull he wasn't, because he did try to say that he wasn't a racist, which I always find funny when people make that argument, because if the most damning person who called Hulk Hogan a racist was Hulk Hogan himself, like that. Like when you literally admit, yeah, I might be a little racist. Yeah, I might be a little racist. Like at the end of the day, that I found that part really ironic, because he was trying to act like, well, people calling him like racist, it's not fair. I'm like, dude, he's the one who called himself racist. Like, so that whole interview with Vince, outside of the really bad makeup job, was just odd at times.
First of all, don't listen to Vince. He a pathological liar anyway. But when Hulk Hogan's own daughter calls him a racist, that's not a good look, right? Like, she calls him that. She believes him to be that. His ex-wife believes him to be that. And like you said in his own words, when you say I'm a little bit racist, that just means you're racist. the little bit, just all I need to hear is you're racist. The little bit thing means nothing to me. You're racist. That's who he was. That's part of his that's part of the persona. Well, not the Hulk Hogan persona, but that's part of who he was as a person. And for Vince to try to whitewash it and clean it up or whatever, I think that's funny. One, because he's just lying. And two, Vince is like the last person you want to be your white knight. He don't have clean hands himself.
No, and that's absolutely fair. It just when Vince is your biggest defender, that's probably says a lot. Can somebody explain why everybody complaining about R-Truth coming back when we knew WWE wasn't going to take his career serious? You know what's funny? Now, that's why I don't want to see Karrion Kross come back. You know, everybody's doing the "we want Cross" movement, and if he wants to come back and can work something out with WWE and he's happy, you know, that's like the most important thing. But in all reality, if we're just kind of looking at the creative side of it, I look at how they like are kind of treating R-Truth and not really giving him anything of substance to work with, and I've already reverted him back to the goofball R-Truth character.
Right.
And then I see like, you know, no, we want Cross. Like, you clearly see that Cross wasn't valued when he was with the company. Like, clearly there's a disconnect. Like, I think if you really want to support Cross and you want Cross, I think the best thing for him is let him go, you know, to your local indie scene and maybe watch, you know, appear in like New Japan or TNA or somewhere that will appreciate him for what he does well and just really highlight his strengths. Because I feel like there's a lot of indies out there, like maybe some GZW or Bloodsport. Like there are places that really cater to the style of match that Cross wants to have and his character work. And WWE is not one of those places. So we want Cross. I think it's a nice gesture, but if I'm a real Karrion Kross fan, I don't think I'd want to see him go back to WWE because he clearly wasn't valued while he was there.
I don't want to see him go back until he makes the rounds. I like the idea of him going to TNA, New Japan, maybe even doing a stint, Ring of Honor, AEW. I think he can build himself up the way a lot of performers did when they left WWE, and then WWE sought them out because they'd realize, like, yo, this guy, he built himself up, or she's built herself up. I think that's what Karrion Kross should do. He should bet on himself, reestablish himself, and then maybe 3-4 years from now, maybe he makes a return to WWE in a different way, with a different storyline.
No, and absolutely. At the end of the day, like, I think right now, the best thing Cross can do is just, well, go find a home. Like, it's clearly not WWE that's the right place for you right now. So, go out there, ride the fan support and just go find somewhere that you can call home that'll really appreciate you. So, definitely the last thing I wanted to throw in out there too, because I found this interesting, is apparently, TNA is trying to get a new TV deal. I found that interesting, and apparently WWE is going to help them. And one of their things that they want to have TNA do, and this might be the pettiest thing I've ever heard, is counter program AEW again. So apparently they'll try to help them find a TV deal and try to get them a slot on, Wednesday night so they can oppose Dynamite. And to me, that's just the funniest thing that they can do. It's so, this obsession with program is starting to get a little weird at this point. Because if that does turn out to be true and they do get a TV deal for, just happening to be, for Wednesday and exactly the Dynamite slot, like, one, I don't think, AEW's at all worried about 2025 TNA, but that being said, that would actually, for a company that made sure to tell us that AEW isn't competition, that would be a really funny look for them to turn around and do things like that, because it sure sounds like you consider AEW as competition if this is what you're pulling.
I agree. I don't think you do all these different stunts and all this counter programming if you don't view them as competition. Maybe for WWE and the powers that be within the company, they kind of view AEW as their new WCW, if you will. And for them to take all these different steps, including what they're doing with TNA, I think that tells me that AEW is doing a lot of things right.
It's funny because the biggest thing that I kind of thinking like I feel like it almost has to come to do with it almost feels like it has to do with salaries when it comes to TKO and WWE because it's one of those things where I feel like that's probably where they view them as competition because they're a legit second option that can pay top talent a lot of money.
Right.
And it almost feels like that this is a sabotage attempt to try to drive down viewership so they get less on their next TV deal. Because listen, if AEW is willing to pay these top stars, $5 million a year, that forces WWE to have to pay them $6 million. So it almost feels like that even if I feel like they almost definitely view them as competition in the way that they know as long as AEW is around, that's going to keep driving up the price of talent. And I feel like that might be the part they don't like.
I agree 100%. I think, look, WWE, look, they're still the standard, but I think AEW is a good product, a strong product, and I think that WWE, through their actions, recognize that.
Say WWE is very petty, but to be fair, AEW is petty for putting their ads during WWE shows when they go to commercial. I mean, to be fair, if the company's trying to counter program every single thing that I do, literally going back to when Dynamite was first getting out and they're NXT directly at the AEW time slot, sure, I would do the exact same thing. So, it's funny. At the end of the day, I'm just, hoping for the continued growth of AEW and the continued success because the more wrestling for everybody involved, the better.
Agreed.
Say that being said, Mo, that's all the time we have. Anything you want to add before we get up on out of here?
No, I appreciate the chat hopping in. Damien, always appreciate the love. Key, Kyle, and everybody else. Thank you, chat, for being so lively. Thank everybody else for joining us from whatever platform you're joining us on. We appreciate you guys. And make sure you check us out come Monday on the morning show.
And we'll have shows for you all weekend, like Passion and Precision,
Great
podcast
show.
named Deferred. We will absolutely make sure to keep you entertained all weekend. That being said, listen, I'll make sure to let you guys know what time we'll be on next week because I might have to work Tuesday again. I'm hopefully taking Sunday off for the Renaissance Fair that's in town. It's only on the weekend, so I had to take off, try to get next Sunday off. And of course, AEW Forbidden Doors on the 24th as well. So trying to load up my Sunday with some wrestling and some, Renaissance Fair action. So I'll definitely let you know, but we'll guarantee to lock. We'll see you out next Thursday for the N1 podcast. That being said, we thank you all for tuning in and hope you guys have a great weekend.